This is episode 34 with author and speaker Cassandra Ferguson. Welcome to the episode of the UV Effect podcast. My name is Gabrielle Jordan. I am your host, and thank you so much for being here. Today, our guest is Cassandra Ferguson, and she is a speaker and an author. She's a speaker. She talks on many different subjects, but she focuses a lot on the topic of communication, both in personal life and in your business life. But today, we're focusing more on that personal life because she is also an author, and the book that we're going to be discussing today, as she is an author of multiple books and a co-author of multiple books. The book that we discussed in this interview is called Dear Daughter, and it is all about how to grow a relationship, a strong and positive relationship with your daughter, and how a daughter can grow a positive and strong relationship with their mother. So this was a collaborative book. She wrote it along with multiple other co-authors. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing what that book is all about. Also, the message of communication between a mother and a daughter and why it's so important and how, the different tools and skills and all things that need to be developed in order to build a strong relationship between a mother and a daughter. So it's a very interesting conversation, a very good conversation, especially with me because I have a very incredible relationship with my mother. Of course, most of you probably know that she is my momager, my COO of my company, Jules Jordan. And she also does a lot of my management and all of that. So we have learned how to have an effective relationship through communication. And because, both the business and our mother-daughter relationship really depends on us having a good relationship in both of those sectors, and having good communication skills in both of those areas. So, I definitely related to this and, these importance and the tips that she gives. And if you're dealing with, your daughter right now and you're trying to figure out how to grow your relationship with her, or you're going through a tough time or a tough patch right now, I think this is a good one to listen to. And I think it will really be useful to kind of build the confidence that you guys have in one another, and also just the relationship in general. And just the important things that need to be learned and need to be implemented in order to have a strong relationship. So I'm excited for you guys to hear this one. We talk a lot about communication again. Of course, we talk a lot about confidence. We talk a lot about just being able to listen and lots of other things I think are really, really useful when it comes to not even just growing a mother-daughter relationship, but really any relationship. The kind of tips that she shares, they can really apply to almost any relationship. So definitely, you want to build those relationship skills and communication skills. Keep listening, and I'm excited for you to learn a little bit more about Cassandra Ferguson, as well with her books and the work that she does outside of that as well. So, without further ado, let us jump into this interview with Cassandra Ferguson. Welcome, Miss Cassandra. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me, Gabrielle. I'm just so honored to be with you. I admire you from a distance and afar.
Oh, wow.
So you are a model young lady. You are an inspiration. You are a true leader, and I thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Praise made me really happy. And I'm excited to have you on the show as well. Something that's really important, I think, to me, and then to a lot of the adults that I've spoken to, even kids as well, is relationships, and especially in that parent relationship. My mom and I talk about it all the time, and that we are very close as well. And her mom is very close. She's very close to her mom. And I love that you focus a lot on that whole idea of that mother-daughter relationship and building that bond and making it stronger. And I think that that's so important, especially when it comes for a young person understanding their unique value. I think the reason I was able to kind of get an idea of mine at such a young age was because my parents, my mom, my dad, really
put it into me that I needed to realize what that was, that I needed to focus on what made me special, what made me stand out, and that was the thing that was going to propel me in life. And so I love that you're focusing on that communication, focusing on that relationship between, a mother and a daughter. And I'm excited to jump into what you do when it comes to that focus and that mission that you have, and also to hear your advice that you can share with my audience today. And I'm sure they'll be able to pull plenty of nuggets from you.
Well, actually, glad you asked. About 6 or 7 years ago, before my older daughter was about to go to college, fear came in and struck, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's about to go to college. I need to make sure that everything that I have taught her, now that she's going to be away from the house, that she's going to apply it. So I said, okay, what can I do? So I said, okay, let me get some wisdom women around and let us come together and let us impart and let us speak and let us affirm her and our other daughter. So we got together and we began to do it once a month, and we began to get with our daughters and do things. And we eventually came up with the name Diamonds and Pearls. So the girls called themselves Diamonds, the mothers called themselves Pearls. And what happened was we began to see the importance and the value of getting together with our daughters through this. So the girls were very transparent through the environment of being in a home, and we made a celebration time as well. So we eventually said that, I created an organization called Diamonds and Pearls Unlimited, which helps young ladies and moms to come together, but to spend time and for the moms to mentor the young girls. And through that, this book was birthed, Dear Daughter.
Yes. So, before we go into that, because I really do want to talk about it more, we're going to have some time to talk about your book more, because I really want to expand upon that. But before we get into that, I really did want to, I like to have my audience get a little bit about the person, that I'm interviewing before we, get into all the wonderful things that you're doing in your company. One note there, I love that you said that you kind of got together with people and continue to kind of feed information into your daughter and educate her, because my mom always told me that you only have 18 years to prepare you for the rest of your life. And I love, that's kind of like that same kind of mindset where you're, as they're about to go off into college, you're still trying to feed as much knowledge as you can. And I think that's really great. So yes, before we get into what you do in your book and Diamonds and Pearls, I would love to talk about your story. Where did you begin? Why was this mission? Where do you feel like it was really birthed out of? Before even college, anything, was there something that came before that maybe made you feel like you wanted to develop a stronger relationship with your daughter? Or was there, what did this mission, begin?
Well, it actually began with me and my mother. My mother was a single mom. But I had a rough childhood because of her being a single mom, and she was also abused as a wife. So what happened was me and my mother were close. I've always honored her and all that, but there were walls that my mother built because she was in survival mode. So when I tried to get a little bit closer or love her a little bit more, there were walls put up, and I couldn't get close because, again, she was in survival mode, and she was also a hurt woman.
Right.
So, and what that showed me was the importance, how I ached and how I wanted to have that moment with my mother. It showed me how important I needed to spend time with my daughters, how, when even though I'm hurting, how I have to push past that hurt of anything and just make sure I stay connected to them. And so that's what I did. When they were young, I always told them they were beautiful. I told them they were brilliant. I told them they were talented. I told them there was nothing they can do. And the fruit of that came to pass when they became adults. Yeah. They believed everything that I spoken to them.
That's wonderful. I think that's what it's all about, that kind of speaking into them when they're younger. And I mean, that's kind of what I've learned through my relationship with my mom. And I think it's important when just seeing how close we've been, and then even hearing your story as well, kind of seeing that difference where you weren't as close to your mother and that kind of built that wall there, but being closer to your daughters allowed them not only to have a close relationship with you, but with themselves, and to be able to provide them themselves and grow. I think that's really great. So I see that's really where you found when you were having when you had your own daughters, and you kind of saw the difference. You want to develop that difference between kind of those relationships that you had, like the relationship that you had with your mom. You wanted a stronger foundation with your daughters.
Right.
And is that where you felt like that's where you found the real importance of a mother-daughter relationship?
Yes, absolutely. That's where the passion came from. And I believe your passion is your drive.
Yes.
So that's exactly where the passion came from. Wanting the closer and the stronger relationship between me and my mother, and wasn't able to get it at a young age because of, my mother being in survival mode. And I say that she was in survival mode. She was a single parent, and her whole thing was, let me take care of my children, and sometimes as mothers, and I even put that in the beginning of my book, sometimes we're in that mode, or we're in that caretaker, or let me provide, that we forget that our daughters are also calling out to us in their reactions.
I love that. I mean, actually, taking from that point, you said calling out to them, and the daughters are calling out to their mothers in their actions. And right. I feel like, with that's almost like, a form of communication, right? That's a way of, right. I know, like for myself, I don't always communicate with words, but communicating with actions, with the things that I do. And so I feel like, or at least what I've learned so far in my relationship with my parents and my mom's relationship with her mom, is that communication's one of the most important aspects of a relationship, if not the most important aspect of a relationship. I want to know, why do you think it's so difficult for a mother and daughter to be able to communicate with one another? Because I know there tends to be that issue, especially in like modern America, and then also in the struggling countries where the relationships aren't as close. Because especially when it comes to daughters, since they're kind of treated so poorly.
Well, coming from a single parent household, that's why it was hard for my mother. And I think that's not just my mother's story; it's the household of many single moms. A lot of times they are worrying about taking care of the family. They're working. Like at one time, my mother had 4 jobs to take care of me and my brother. So I think that mold and that mindset is that, let me just take care of my children. Let me take care of my children. And it's not necessarily time in there for us to communicate, because you're constantly moving, you're constantly going. And so when I have a problem or I have a situation, you may be tired. Yeah. Which is the real thing. You may be so tired that you can't talk to me at that moment. But, in your heart, you may really want to do it. But your body and your mind is saying, I'm tired. I need to rest. So I think that was my story for, I would say, back for the in my age group, with my coming up in my, with my mom. But right now, it's the devices, the social media devices. And the technology. It can be good. Yeah. But when you're trying to build a relationship with a person, a human being, and they always have a device in their hand, and they're not giving you eye contact, because I believe in eye contact. So you really can't see what's going on in their soul. Then that's where the struggle of communication comes today. The devices and everybody just not sitting down and just having time, being intentional in all of your relationships, just being intentional about developing and growing your relationships.
And I love that. I mean, those 2 aspects you talked about, how moms normally they have so much to work, so much that they have to work on, and it's just a lot they have to take on, and so they are exhausted at the end of the day. They're tired at the end of the day. And even that other aspect of social media and using the devices, I think both of those things are very relevant even today, because because still parents are still working, and kids of course have their devices, and then with that kind of coming together, it makes it even harder for that relationship to build. It makes it even harder for that communication to develop. What would you say is like a way for, so I think that even in the aspect of when you're communicating with someone else, you need to be able to understand what you're communicating. So if a mother is too tired to kind of have a conversation, I feel like at that point she's kind of communicating that I am exhausted, I don't really have time. And then if a daughter is on her device, not really talking or listening to her mother, it's communicating to her mother that I don't really care. I'm kind of focused over here. So at least care about what you're saying right now, because I'm kind of focused on what I'm saying right here. So I think it's important that we are also aware, not just what someone else is saying to us, but what we're saying to other people. How can we become more aware of what we're communicating to others, and how important is that to you?
As you were talking, I was thinking about the Dennis Rainey. I won't take credit for this, but has a book called The 5 Love Languages.
Yes.
And, often people can communicate to you through their love language. Mm-hmm. Like, I love gifts. I love gifts, and I love when people do like service things around the house for me, because I'm busy. I'm constantly going. So when my family communicates with me with gifts and doing projects around the house, I absolutely know they love me. I know it, because that's my love language. And I think, but again, this comes from spending time with people, getting to know them. And I think that's the part that we need to be intentional about. We need to really get to know our daughters. We need to get to know our loved ones, so we can find out what is it that will make their eyes spark up when I do this thing. Yes, it's when I know you have went out there, you have stained my deck. You have helped me fold these clothes. No, really. And with my daughters, I know that their love language, one of them is gifts, but one of my daughters love for people just to sit and talk to her and spend time with her and be up the touchy-feely type. I have one that's touchy-feely and one be like, give me my space. I need my space. But that's okay.
That's like my brother and I.
Yeah, I need my space now.
Right.
But then I have one that doesn't mind you being up on her and hugging and kissing her and all that. But that's when you get to know your daughters or anyone else intentionally. You watch them, you spend time with them. And sometimes in order to do that, you have to break the routine. And you have to break the mode of what you do daily and just sit there and do things together.
And that's so great. I mean, that idea, like just taking time to get to know another person, or, especially when it comes to family. I think that kind of idea that applies to just so much more than just like, love language. I feel like, particularly with, my mom and my parents, they watched me like from a very early age when I was making jewelry and when I would go out and, get stuff, and I would go to school and sell, whatever I could sell. They watched me, and, they were the ones, they came up to me and asked me if I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't do that kind of research on me, and they saw that I had this initiative and this drive. And so they talked to me and they were like, hi, let me tell you about entrepreneurship. Do you want to do it yourself? And I think of course, that was such a huge part of my whole journey, that one moment of them coming to me and telling me, because I think that if I had maybe found it out on my own, it'd be like a few years in the future that I would have been able to find out what entrepreneurship was and what it was, and how I could start it. And so that idea of being able to sit with someone and talk with someone and watch someone in order to learn about them and to, and then be able to communicate with them in order to, really help them and to, develop them, especially as a mother to a daughter. I think that's so crucial, and I love that you pointed that out, because that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, that whole just kind of watching, and time kind of just passes by without you actually taking in and seeing that other person and being aware of that other person for real. So I love that.
Right.
So let's talk about your book, Dear Daughter.
Okay.
So you, along with, it was 6 other mothers, correct? You guys all wrote this book together, Dear Daughter. And the point is really to share, like, as you were talking about before, you're talking about sharing wisdom with these girls, and discussing, what you've learned and helping them, through this book, through your journey through this book. Can you tell us, why this was so important for you to write this book? Tell us more about it as well.
Well, it really became, again, it was an idea about 7 years ago when we started the whole Diamonds and Pearls Unlimited. Yes. Kind of put it on the back of the shelf. And then when the incident happened in Delaware, where the young girls were in the bathroom and they were fighting over a guy, and one girl hit her head and she died. So when that happened, it struck me. I said, oh my God, what part can I do for these young ladies? Because obviously they are not receiving the wisdom and the instructions for living.
Right.
to let this happen. Now you have 2 young girls that lives have ended. One has died, and now one has to go to jail. Mm-hmm. 2 lives that now, one was in high school, So I picked the book back up. I already had women in mind that I was gonna. I started off. Can you believe I started off with 13 mothers? 13.
So that'll be a big book.
And then, but everybody was not quite ready. They were saying other things. But these last 6 women, I'm telling you, they were committed. They knew that it was their assignment. And they got in there, and I said, I just need you guys to tell me some wisdom that you gave to your daughters. So we have in here, we have relationships. We have about being your sister's keeper, like you stick with your sister. We have in here about marriage, being a godly woman. We have in here about being living the life that God has designed you to live. We have in there about watch what you tweet, watch what you put on social media.
Nice.
I mean, so the communication, we have everything that basically a young girl needs to know about wisdom on before you make that move or before you do that next thing. Think about what you're doing and know that you are loved. God loves you. And no matter what someone else has told you about yourself, it doesn't matter because we also base it off of Psalm 139. You are wonderfully made in God's. You are His masterpiece. He knows everything about you. There's nothing that He doesn't know about you. So that's what it all came from. And I'm gonna tell you, and what happened was this: when our daughters got a hold of this book, it pushed them into even being more great. Because we were speaking and we were sharing and we was telling. And so now they're like, oh, wow, my mother is saying this, telling stories. Like, of course, we got their permission from this because it's even one story in here about my daughter almost died from a car accident because she was drinking alcohol.
Oh, wow.
Not only did she almost die, the car flipped over, completely over.
Wow.
So the story is in here, she was hearing her friends in the alcohol voice over me, even though I smelled it. And I kept warning her. I said, something, you got to watch it. You want to go out with your friends on Friday. And she was like, no, I'm not doing it. But I said, I know. And God told me something was going to happen to get her attention. She walked out of that accident. Her car flipped completely over. All windows busted out. All airbags came out. And this was in the process of writing this book. She got out of that car without a scratch or a break.
Wow.
And that was her wake-up moment.
Right, yeah. Wow.
That was her wake-up moment.
And I think, like, what you did with the book, I think, is incredibly important, especially now. I've shared with the audience before how we are constantly, I guess, just drifting, not even drifting, we are going so fast and turning, the society into this place where it's just all about other people and other people's opinions, what other people want. And you just go along with that because that's how you fit in. That's how you become popular. That's how you gain friends. That's how, you become successful. You just become like everyone. You fit in with everything else. And I mean, I think with this book is that what it does is it helps for young girls that if they have this feeling that they want to fit in, or if they want to like learn something from someone else or listen to somebody else, at least they can listen from somebody's story of deciding to do that. Listening to somebody's story of wanting to fit in, or listening to the story of someone who did decide to stand up, someone who did decide to kind of develop what they need to develop. I think these kinds of books, because I talked with somebody else recently that has a book that focuses on girls as well, and sharing their message and things from other women. And I love how with these kinds of books they are so focused on kind of teaching an old new message, reminding reminding this new generation, the millennials, Generation Z, my generation. Something that was taught from way back when and reminding us of what that was, passing that back forward, that makes sense. Passing that forward into the future so that we can we can remember it, so we can gain it, and that we don't lose sight of it, because it's so easy now, especially with social media, things just kind of come through one ear, out the other, and it's so easy for things to be forgotten. And so I think it's really crucial, like with your kind of book, that you have that generational knowledge that's now being passed back to us, that we need to hear more than anything, because that's what's going to kind of help us to remember, how we are unique, why we are important, and that we are not supposed to be fitting in. That's not what we're not supposed to fit in. We are supposed to stand out and do what, they'll use those unique gifts and be that person, that light, So I love that.
And I like how you said old new message.
Right.
It's old for me, but it's new for you.
Exactly.
And then the generation behind it, because I think that women, the older women, we have a responsibility to the younger women. Absolutely. And that is to mentor them, that's to train them, that's to mold them, that's to give them wisdom. So I have a responsibility, and it does take a village. It absolutely takes a village to raise a child. It does.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, my mom she continues to tell me that. She puts it on Facebook all the time. And then, I love my Facebook village and people there that just, always supporting me. Right. And I think that is, and especially with what you do with Diamonds and Pearls, having that, with in person, which is even better, in fact, that eye contact, like you said, and being able to just be there with, people that you can trust. I think that's really important. If you want to talk more about that, definitely do, because I think that's also a really important part of it.
Well, this is the book, of course. Can you see it?
Yes. You raised up a little bit more. Yes, perfect. Okay.
So, and like I said, in this book, we talk about one of the young ladies was one of the daughters. Just while we were in the process of this book, she was just going along her day, and she passed out. One of the daughters just passed out. Come to find out, she had a very, I don't know, it was type 2 diabetes that she didn't even know. So it also talks about how, our daughters need to take care of themselves. You need to take care of your body. You need to go to the doctors. You need to pay attention to your body. Your body speaks to you. So, and then another one of the daughters that liked to dance now has gotten accepted into Debbie Allen's dance school. So there's so many great stories coming from this book. And even from us starting the book and letting our daughters know, hey, we got our eyes on you. We're here. We're paying attention. We not, sometimes we don't say stuff, because I know sometimes moms won't say anything, because we do have to let you guys live, the daughters live. But at the same time, we want you to know that if you need a wisdom source, if you need someone to talk to, if you need someone to pray with you, we are here. We are here for you. We're going to be here. We're your biggest cheerleaders. We're going to love you unconditionally. We're going to be proud of you, and we're going to let the world know that you are our daughters. You are our daughters, and we are here also to take a stand against the image, because the image of women in society now, according to reality TV, no, everybody is not backbiters. Everybody is not trying to get everybody's man. But unfortunately, the young girls cling to reality TV, and they try to portray those images of what they see on TV, and that's what the movement is about. Hey, no, we're coming for our daughters. You will not have our daughters. You will not make them think that they have to be backbiters. They have to cuss each other out. No, we have a generation of girls that know, and the women as a mother, as an auntie, as a grandmother, as a sister, we need to take a stand for our girls.
Absolutely.
We have to do it.
And please, tell us a little bit more about the Dear Daughter movement, because I was looking into what you do there, and I know that you have basically what you're trying to get to done is have these groups of women and daughters reading the book and kind of having almost like a book club kind of thing, but focusing on your book, Dear Daughter, and kind of breaking it down and communicating about it and talking about it. Tell what is the vision for that? Why did you get this started?
Right. So the movement basically is this, because we talked about spending intentional time with your daughter, setting that time aside. So the movement is for you not to just buy this book, give your daughter a book, give your niece a book and everybody a book and assume they're reading a book, right?
Right.
But this is to bring you back to the reality. When I intentionally spend time with my daughter, and if I do it once a week, whether, some groups can do it once a month, but the whole thing is to do it 7 weeks. Whether you do it once a month, whether you do it twice a month, whatever, but you are intentionally, I'm telling you about being intentional. Intentional. When you're intentional about things, it brings results. It just so just intentionally spending time. Say, hey, let's go with the other mothers, because that's how we started. We started in homes. We were going to house to house to house. So it was like a club. We just didn't have a book. We just didn't have a book.
Right.
Just sort of take the Diamonds and Pearls meetings that we had and how we used that time to talk to our daughters and making it a book club. But this time you're having a conversation over the book. You're talking about the different chapters. At the end of each chapter, there is a reflection moment, and there's also a prayer at the end of each chapter. So using that time to be intentional and listen to your daughter, to talk about, what do you think about this chapter on relationships? Do you have some people that you wish you didn't have in your life? Or do you have some people that you may not have necessarily paid attention to? You kind of brushed them off because they didn't fit into your mold right now. So what do you do about that? So having those intentional conversations, but again, it goes back to spending time with your daughter. You can't have an intentional conversation unless you set an intentional meeting.
Absolutely. I think just from what you've shared with me today in this interview, I think you have so much knowledge to share when it comes to relationships, of course, and then being able to be around the women that you are around, surrounding yourself with them and learning from them, and then also seeing how they raise their daughters and what kind of, what came about with their daughters and everything. I mean, I think that's definitely important to surround yourself with people that you can learn from and to be around, and then also, apply in your own life. And so something I wonder, I mean, this might seem like an obvious question, maybe one that you might have answered a little bit throughout the interview, but I want to ask it directly because I do think people are, including myself, kind of results oriented. So we kind of need to see things like how it'll end up, what will the result be. And so I want to know what kind of effects, what kind of changes, what kind of, I guess, positive or even negative effects have you seen in maybe your daughter's life, in the daughter's lives of, some of your friends, from the different kind of teaching styles. So like your teaching style, how did that affect your daughter? From someone else's teaching style, how did that affect their daughter? You don't have to go like too deep or anything.
No, it's fine. It's fine because my style may be different than your mama's style.
Right, exactly.
And I realized that.
I just kind of want to get like an idea of like what you have seen, because I think, of course, people learn different ways and people raise different ways, and there's just a lot of different ways people can go about things. But I do think that there's sometimes like this, there's an idea of what you can do that will definitely be, that'll come out okay, like that'll come out right, like communication, having communication with your daughter, it helps for them to grow well. But I'm just kind of like want to get your ideas on like, how to raise and so to speak, and what that kind of outcome could come out like.
And your teaching style is all related to your personality.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So when you asked me that, I chuckled because I am very bold. So like again, some parents. I'm gonna use me for example. Some parents may smell alcohol on their children if they came out from a party. And they may just wait and, have a conversation with them in the morning. With me, I will wait till you come in the door. If you get in at 2 a.m, I will go to your room and I will straight up say, hey, I smell alcohol. So, and I'm bold. I can say I'm bold. And my kids, one thing they said about me, they never have to wonder what I'm thinking. They never have to wonder what I'm thinking. They said that usually I'm going to be upfront. And they often tell me, well, how do you know all this? I said, because God gives mamas insight. He gives us insights. He lets us see. He lets us know about our young. He lets us know about our children. So I have insight into things that you may say, my daughter used to say, how in the world do mommy know this? And also, we've been young too. Mm-hmm. We've been young, which I have other women in the book. Again, they are more, they'll wait. They'll just wait before they have a conversation. And their approach may be a little more gentler, which mine is bold, and I'm up front. And usually that's how I am with everybody. Like, hey, if I have a question, I usually ask you. I don't try to go to that person. I go directly to the source. Right. So I think that it's all based on your personality. The personality of the mother, which you may have the quiet mother and just quietly may not say anything. She may not say anything about it. She may wait till something happen, or just wait to, she may be a writer, or she just, it's personalities. It's all based on your mother's personality. And if you can see the type of, and that's a good book to write, the personalities of the mother. I love that. I'm thinking about it and how their approach to things, and how they deal with their children is really based on their personality.
Definitely.
Wow. Yeah. I like that question. I really like it.
Don't write the book, hey. I'll be back on the show once you write it.
Right, yes, indeed. Yes, I love it.
I love your answer too, because that is very true. And I think one reason why I asked the question was one, also to get kind of your input, but also the other reason I asked that is because I think a lot of people tend to look for like a direct answer to solve their questions about their kids, or like how to raise them and everything. And oftentimes there really isn't like a direct answer, because as you said, there's the different types. People are different. People have different personalities, and they raise people differently, and not, there's not a set way to raise your child. And so I do think that with your answer, I think it would really help someone that maybe wanted like the specific answer, like how do I raise my child so they come out right or whatever. I think it'll help them to kind of just be able to realize, if anything, that how you raise your kid is, how kind of looking at who you are, like how are you raised, who are you, what kind of person are you, and then kind of engineer your way, your response, how you're going to raise your child based off of who you are. So I think with everything that you do, especially when it comes to a journey, of raising a kid, or even if it's business or whatever it is, I think it always is important to look at yourself first. Look at who you are, how you're developed, looking back, like how you were raised, and all those different aspects can really help to determine, how you're going to go about this, what you're going to do, what's right, what's wrong for you, and everything like that. And of course, like everything, it's always learning. So things kind of go wrong sometimes, but it's not the end of it all. But I definitely appreciate your answer, and I look forward to you writing that book so that we can have you back on the show.
Yeah, because one thing we have to remember, there's no perfect child, neither a perfect parent.
Yes, of course.
And I know with me being a parent, I became a parent at the age of 18. So that was young to me, because I was still trying to figure who I am. I was still trying to figure, at 18, I'm still 19. I had her at 19, became pregnant at 18. But and the thing that happened with me is I graduated in June and got married in July. So me and my husband knew we wanted to be married, and we'll be celebrating 30 years next week.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. But the thing is, I wasn't quite sure about this whole adult thing. I wasn't quite sure. I didn't have a child. Oh my goodness. So I was not at all a perfect parent. And then that was something that I had to relieve myself of. The mistakes that I made as a parent was because I didn't know. And a lot of people look to be a perfect parent, and they look for a perfect child. And I always say this: there's only one perfect person, and that's God. And so if you give your child to God, and if you give your parenting to Him, He will give you the tools you need to raise your child. Because there's moments that you may have to get out of yourself, or you may have to get out of the mode you're in to go and rescue your child, from whatever is going on. But you may have to do that because it's a bigger picture than me. It's a bigger picture than me. So I had to learn how to parent. And I'm still learning, because now I got adults. They go from you know, my youngest is 22 and my oldest is 28. So now I have adults, you know, and that parenting style from when they were 2 versus 28 is totally different. It's totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I really appreciate what you were sharing, you know, just throughout the entire interview. I think it was just very impactful. I definitely think that any mother or daughter that's kind of listening to this and wanting to pull something from it definitely has. I think it's something probably to listen to again, just like most podcasts. Like, listen to it again and grab more nuggets. But I want to say I really appreciate you being on here and sharing your wisdom. And also, being very, transparent as well with what you've shared on here as well. But before you go, I definitely want to give you an opportunity to share if there's anything else that you want to talk about, any new projects or anything that you maybe want to let us know about.
Oh, yeah. Right now I'm doing the book tour. So it's several states that we're going to. One in Cincinnati, Ohio, in October. In August, I try to take some downtime, but it don't look like that's going to happen too much. But I'm going to take a little, and we probably will be in Virginia in August. And then I also am a part of this another movement for daughters. I can't announce it yet because it's still being finalized, and because of my passion in the Dear Daughter movement that I'm doing, another daughter movement reached out to me.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so we're joining forces. Me and some moms are joining forces, and we're going to be going to different states as well. So I'll keep you updated on that. But of course, you can listen to me on Praise Baltimore 106.1 every Saturday morning at 9 a.m.
Okay.
And we have topics from millennials, parenting. This week we had suicide, a topic about suicide. Next week we're having leadership. So we always have topics because our desire is to hear the cry of the land.
That's wonderful.
Whatever the cry is.
And we'll have all the links to, your social media, your website, also, so you guys can check out more about Miss Cassandra. You can see, what's coming up next, so you can follow her on social media, so you can see the new groups that are coming up as well. And also learn more about the radio station as well. That'll also, I believe it's on your website, so that'll all be linked down below. Definitely be sure to check her out. Be sure to follow her. She's incredible, and I really appreciate you being here today.
And I appreciate you too, sweetheart. And eyes have not seen, I have to speak this over you, eyes have not seen, nor ears have heard what God has prepared for you.
I love that one so much. I love that one so much.
And it's the truth.
It's so true. It's so
because
true.
You did the number one thing. You honored your parents, but you also honor God. And because you do that, you watch what He do in your life.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the UV Effect podcast. Hope that you enjoyed this interview with Cassandra Ferguson. And if you did, be sure to head over to GabrielleJordanInspires.com/034. That's 034 to check out all of her information. Her links will be on that page to her website, her social media, her book, everything. And be sure to contact her if you want to know more about Cassandra Ferguson. Also, while you're there on GabrielleJordanInspires.com, be sure to leave a comment letting us know how you like the show. And you can also do that on iTunes and rate there as well, so that people will know how you're liking the show and if they should join in and listen to it as well. And I hope that you are liking it. Also, if you're already a part of our family, be sure to head over to Instagram and follow us at the UV Effect to check out upcoming guests, quotes from these episodes, as well as behind-the-scenes clips that we'll post on the Insta story. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you will be here next Tuesday for another episode of the UV Effect podcast. All right, see you then.